Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/slash Tales from Tech Support. In today's episode, large company has speaker issues. Solved in 5 seconds. When UPS won't deliver, automation tale. Never go fully hipster. Thanks for the heart attack, I guess. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Large company has speaker issues. Solved in 5 seconds. Nice short story from me today. Obligatory mobile format notification. I work in a tech repair store which mainly focuses on businesses as our primary clients. I had a client come in a few months ago with their laptop and a 2.1 external speaker system. They were having blue screen issues which stemmed from that Windows update a few months ago. That was an easy fix. They also said they have had these speakers and have never been able to get them to work. I take everything back into the workshop and fix the laptop issue, as that was an urgent issue to get the business running again. I then took a look at the speakers and saw that every cable was in the wrong place. I called them up and asked if this was how they had them plugged in, to which they replied yes. I told them that I had fixed all their issues, and they could pick up their laptop and speakers. The client arrived and I turned on their computer to show them that was working, before opening up YouTube and going to a random video for the explanation as to why their speakers wouldn't work. I removed the subwoofer cable from the headphone jack in the speakers, plugged it into the headphone jack of the computer, and plugged the speakers into the subwoofer. Sound started blasting from the speakers. Whoops, I forgot to turn it down before showing them. It took them a second to process what happened, but we all had a great laugh when they realized the speakers they have had for years didn't work because someone placed all the cables in the wrong sockets. Also turned out that the techie guys in their store was the one who put it together and couldn't figure out why it didn't work, so gave up on them and threw them into a cupboard. When UPS won't deliver, automation tale. I work in automation in a machine shop, which means my users are mostly salty old blue-collar dudes that hate computers. This story is not really about their mistakes, but mine. I had one machine that has internal PC-based controls on it, runs off 24 volts, and every once in a while, the Windows install would be corrupted. I have good backups, so this is not a huge issue, but I come in an hour or two after production does, and higher UPS get really upset with machine downtime. I'm also the only one that actually knows how to restore it. I decide the solution is to install a UPS into the system. I talk to my guy from the controls company who is super competent, and he gives me an option for a battery-based or capacitance-based solution. I know that the battery-based solution will be forgotten until the battery explodes in the cabinet and does a tremendous amount of damage, so I opt for the capacitor-based solution. This means it really only has enough juice to make sure the machine is shut down gracefully if there's a power outage, or someone impatient shut the main breaker off too soon. I plunked down 800 or so of the company's hard-earned money, and in a few weeks I have a nice new shiny in my grubby little hands. This is where everything starts to go poorly. I finally get 2 hours to install it, gotta get that product produced, and I pop it onto the DIN rail and boot the machine up. The UPS lights up and says charging, 1%, 20 minutes later it says 5%, 2 hours later it says 35%, and I pull it back out and put the machine back to production. I call up my guy and we decide I should ship it to him for testing. A week later I get an email with a video of it booting up perfectly after taking a whole 15 seconds to charge. He can't find a single fault with it and sends it back. I stare at it reproachfully on my desk for a few months hoping that maybe a stern talking to will solve all my problems, and finally there's a few days break in the production schedule, and I now have sufficient time to work on it. I reinstall the known good and working UPS, give it a lecture on behavior, and exactly what dumpster it will end up in should this malarkey continue. This fixes nothing, it blinks at me balefully charging 1 meager percent every 10 minutes or so. I am this close to ripping my hair out in frustration. I try every stupid thing in the world I can think of, spending almost a full day messing with this thing. Then I put my ear right up to it and hear a tiny click like a relay every time the display blinks at me. I grabbed a multimeter and figured it out. See, this PC is inside the operator control, and the 24V power supply is almost 100 feet of 18-gauge wire away. Big capacitors grab big amps when they charge, and the UPS was pulling the 24V down to 21V, tripping its internal low-voltage alarm. The UPS was caught in a stupid loop going, "Oh hey, there's 24V, let me charge to OHNO. Low voltage, better not charge anymore." The final solution was just to put a 10 amp 24V power supply in the operator panel, and as there was ample space, and a 120V line already in there, it took me longer to grab some tools than to install the stupid #$ power supply. After that, it booted after about 15 seconds of charging. I configured it, tested it, and haven't had to bother with it again. Never go fully hipster. In my company, we have a special attitude to people buying non-typical equipment. Everyone is buying Latitude 5510 for work, and you ordered a Lenovo Y540? Fine, but we'll keep an eye on you. You insisted on working on an OKI printer instead of a traditional brother? Don't expect service to be as smooth as usual. Parts do need to travel from across the world. This one guy ordered a Lenovo Legion 5 with a GTX 1660 Ti for work. His explanation was, "I'm a trainer, I'm creating a lot of presentations in different programs, I need to have a powerful device, while still being mobile as I tend to travel across the country." Fair enough. The laptop took 1 week to arrive. The basic configuration was simple. But his programs took yet another week to install, as we have a very strict policy about licenses, which BTW. We're over a decade old. The activation codes were stored somewhere on the manufacturer's server, and what's even worse, finding the installation files was a nightmare. Sadly, this is just the beginning. 3 months in, the customer complains that the thin plastic frame around the screen has cracked. He sends us in a picture, and there clearly is a crack. We have two options: either take his only tool for work away and send it to the manufacturer for a replacement, or order the part and replace it ourselves. He chose option number 2. That simple part, just a screen frame, took 1 month to arrive. In the meantime, another crack appeared on the original frame. Finally, I've got both the laptop and the frame on my desk. I start popping the damn thing off and realize it's glued to the screen itself. Obviously, this is yet another hindrance, but I managed to remove most of the glue and apply the new frame. Now, being a bit lazy, I decide not to glue the new piece in, as it might crack again in the future, or even better, the glue held it so tight that some forces form slight bending the screen as you closed its stubborn hinges might have caused the initial crack. Next day, the customer arrives. He is a very much pedantic man and would like to know everything about the repair. So I go on to explaining what I've done, and he rudely interrupts me with a "Why on earth would somebody glue the bloody thing in? What a stupid idea," and looked me in the eyes as if it was my fault. I immediately parry this with, "You see, this is not your typical business laptop. This device is meant to be used by gamers, and normally gamers don't care much about tiny cracks on one piece of plastic that they don't even notice." That shuts him up for good. He takes his laptop, gives me a stare saying "Sorry to trouble you," and walks away. Fast forward another 2 weeks and there is a new crack. Now, I don't know much about material science, but this type of plastic must have been made to last very short and crack like leather exposed to sun for a long time. And guess who got politely told to bugger off with his non-important issue with the laptop? Thanks for the heart attack, I guess. I work at a large car dealership. It's 5:40 p.m., June 30th in Australia as I write this. It's the end of the financial year, a very important time in the car industry. Earlier I was trying to wrap my head around a weird problem with our wireless, while our admin clerks were furiously tapping away at their keyboards, trying to process the deals the branches have finally sent through after 5 p.m. before end of financial year rollover of our system can be performed. Outside, the wind and rain beat against the windows and roof of our building. My boss had just left for some holiday time, my other colleague had left for the day. I was the only sysadmin left in the building. My train of thought was suddenly derailed as everything went black, and I heard the contact breakers for the generator power panel thumping closed. We'd lost power. I was already hearing the plaintive cries of the admin team crying over the cubicle walls. Thankfully, I've been in this situation before. Due to a major power incident years before, the server room, switches, and some of the IT area are connected to a generator. Even though it was just after 5 p.m., a few of the staff with laptops around the group were still in the office. A bit of quick rewiring, and we had enough laptops going to keep the admin team busy, while I tried to find the reason for the blackout. A quick call to the local power utility gave me no clues as they said nothing was happening in our area, so I decided to walk over to the other side of the warehouse we call an office. The other side of the warehouse is rented to a different car dealership, and the main transformer and plant room is located on this side. There's no internal access between us anymore since they moved in, so I had to walk outside and around the front of the building. I wandered over in the driving rain to see the other dealership manager hanging out of the door and having a smoke. I asked him if he had lost power, he affirmed he had. I told him the local power utility said there wasn't a problem in our area. He says to me, could those guys in the plant room be doing something? We are in the process of getting solar panels installed. My boss was the project manager for this installation and kept me in the loop about the project, but he hadn't scheduled anyone working tonight. I walked into the plant room with the dealership manager in tow to find two of the electricians elbow deep in the main switch cabinet supplying the building. I asked them what the % they were doing. They tell me they're preparing for the solar panels they are installing. I asked them why the %, and they cut the power without telling us, to receive a shrug and a verbal guarantee that the power would be back up in 20 minutes. The manager next to me asked them why the $*, they cut the power without telling him. He was less than 10 meters away from them, and they didn't tell him a thing, to receive a sorry. Turns out he was finishing end of financial year paperwork as well. I was thinking there was no way my boss would be that stupid to authorize a power cut on the most important night of the year, and called him to confirm. He wasn't told about any sort of work being performed tonight, and said he was going to call the person in charge at their end and tear them a new $% Anyway, 30 minutes later and the power's back up. I'm sitting here typing this story back up and waiting to hear from the admin team about any potential database record corruption before they roll the system over.